today's petty revenge, a ruined Disney dream house, a boss buried in spam, and some greedy girls who lose their bubble tea. Let's dive into the first one. There was a house in our area that was known for having really cool murals inside, done by the previous tenant. Outside was pretty tame. She had a pre-built facade to make the house look like a cottage. Inside, all hand-done murals of Disney movies and fairy tales. The lady was an art teacher when she was younger, and later she started one of those paint with wine type businesses, which she did well before fully retiring to just doing paint commissions and furniture decorating. She's always been nice to everyone, even when I'd been a jerk to her when she complained about the truck being loud or speeding. We worked that out and had been friends since. She had an agreement with the original landlord about the art. Since it wasn't outside, it wasn't going to be a problem. She'd been living in that house since the mid-'80s with promises of getting the house in time. Unfortunately, he passed before anything was signed and legitimized, and his kids took over. One of the sons visited the house to inspect it with his daughter, and apparently they fell in love and wanted the art house for his daughter. My neighbor didn't have a lease, which made the fight harder, and they used the art on the walls as an excuse to kick her out. She was devastated, but she was able to buy a property that fit her needs at the last minute in another state, which had a full art studio area on the first floor. She originally wanted to leave the house as is without the cottage-looking front, but my friend offered to restore the house to Rebecca standards for free, since he needed to figure out how to use powered paint sprayers. He also had a friend that did landscaping to help her with the front of the house. She agreed, and we moved all her furniture out to storage units. My friend let her stay in his guest house free of charge if she did a mural on the living room wall. She had the house cleaned out in a week. On the second week, they buffed all the walls with sanders. All the murals from the front to back were gone. It just looked like blotches of colors. My friend, being the ever-diligent painter that he is, masked anything that wasn't paint and sprayed Kills primer everywhere with his new toy sprayer. This thing was pretty powerful. You could spray a whole wall in 4 passes. After the paint dried, he used his Rebecca collection of colors to essentially kill the character of the house. Rebecca condition is what we call flipper houses. It's always the same colors, white with grays all over the house and the awful dark tone pergo flooring. The floors were tile, so he left them alone, but the walls were white semi-gloss. The wood paneling walls, trim, switch covers, outlet covers, counters, and cabinets were sprayed in the most depressing shade of gray. The house looked dead inside when I went in to check it out. It was weird not seeing all the murals. The front of the house was the last project. She agreed to give his landscaping friend the bushes in exchange for the labor of removing the cottage facade without breaking it. The landscaper basically ripped everything out and just dumped gravel and sand with a boulder for decoration. This weekend, I went to fix some problems at an old neighbor's house and noticed the house was still empty. I asked the neighbor if he had seen anyone move in. He said earlier in the week there were some U-Hauls there, but none of them were unloaded, and that was the last time they remember seeing anyone there. But that daughter was in for a surprise when she saw the house get turned into a basic nightmare. Wow, this one is chef's kiss petty. I'm just picturing the daughter unlocking the door, expecting Disney magic, and instead stepping into Welcome to Gray and Sad, the home edition. And I laughed so hard at that Redditor calling it weaponized painting and landscaping, because that's exactly what it was. OP's friend didn't just repaint, they straight up performed a personality exorcism. Murals gone, cottage charm demolished. The best part? All that effort just so the big reveal was the most soul-sucking makeover ever. Honestly, it's art in itself. But if you think that's satisfying, wait until you hear the next one, where a boss denies funeral leave and the revenge is so relentless, I bet his phone still hasn't stopped ringing. A few years ago, I was working at a corporate job and had a very significant death in the family, my grandfather, that I needed to take time off to go handle. I needed to help with the estate and, honestly, just grieve. We were very, very close. I asked my manager to use emergency PTO, and it was denied. I asked to go on FMLA instead, and it was also denied, saying that grandparents didn't qualify. I told him I wouldn't be able to come in for at least a couple of weeks while I flew down to Florida to attend the funeral and help with the estate. They told me if I did that, I would be terminated. So they terminated me, and even had the gall to offer me 2 weeks of severance in exchange for signing an NDA, a gag order, and an indemnity clause, which meant I wouldn't be able to sue them. I wouldn't be able to talk smack about them to others or online. You get the idea. Of course, I refused. That conversation took place on August 1st. On my LinkedIn profile, I listed that I work there from my start date to the beginning of August. The company dated my termination for July 31st. They said they had to do it that way for benefits or something. Fast forward to January. I was up early with my 6-week-old newborn when I got a LinkedIn notification that my former manager had viewed my profile. A few minutes later, I got an email from LinkedIn that my employment at that company was being disputed. He disputed the difference between July 31st and August 1st. LinkedIn ignored my dispute of the report and removed the company experience from my profile entirely. Not to mention that when I did repost the experience, it would no longer be verified by LinkedIn because I would have to verify through a company email address, which I no longer had. The absolute gall of this guy. And seriously, you're thinking about me 6, almost 7 months later? So I found his home address online. I had his personal cell phone number in my phone, and I also found his personal and work email addresses. I signed him up for as much spam as I possibly could find. Not just that, I went to every moving company and real estate agency in the area, asking to be put in contact with an agent, saying that I was looking for a house for $800,000 and moving companies to give quotes for a cross-country move. I gave those websites every contact detail I had for him. Something that would really excite anyone getting that kind of sales lead. A former coworker in the same department told me that his phone was blowing up for days, both his work and personal cell. His role was client-facing, so he couldn't just ignore phone calls. I don't know if he ever figured out that it was me who did that, but those calls would have started pouring in within an hour of his report to LinkedIn. Screw that guy. All right, I'm not gonna lie, this one gave me digital PTSD, but in the most satisfying way possible. One Redditor called it Payback, so relentless, it probably gave him a migraine for days. And I couldn't agree more. So here's what I'm seeing. A grieving person asks for time off to bury a close family member, and the manager not only denies it, but fires them over taking unpaid emergency days. Then, get this, tries to buy their silence with severance and an NDA. Bold move, genius. And then months later, that same person finds them on LinkedIn and actually disputes their work history. I'm reading this thinking, you're about to regret that. And sure enough, he hands out the manager's personal phone number and email to every moving company and real estate agent in the area. I can just picture that phone lighting up like a slot machine jackpot with no way to ignore it. And honestly, if I were him, I'd be hearing phantom phone rings for months. Now, if that gave you secondhand satisfaction, just wait until you see what happened over a $5 bubble tea reward. Instant karma never tasted so sweet. This will be short and sweet. All I wanted was a bubble tea to get me through an afternoon slump. I walked the 5 minutes from my office to the store, and there was a small line ahead of me, which isn't unusual for this area, tourist-heavy city. Standing ahead of me was a gaggle of probably college-age girls talking loudly over each other, and while not directly inconveniencing anyone, they were a tad annoying. I had my headphones in and my sunglasses on, and they seemed to think I wasn't paying attention. They paid for their drinks and were moving over to the pickup when one of them leaned over and said, "Hey, put my phone number in for the points for the next one." And at this point, I realized that I was the next one. The girl behind the counter looked uncomfortable about the whole thing, but didn't say anything as the gaggle walked away to pick up their orders. Now, I don't drink bubble tea often enough to rack up rewards points, but they add up to a $5 discount when you get enough, and I was a bit grumpy over the audacity of these girls to just enter their phone number for someone else's order. I was getting ready to ask the girl behind the counter to clear the screen so I could enter my own phone number when I saw that there was a little button for $5 on the account. I don't know if their last order got them the reward or if they already had one, but the second I saw that button, I realized what I had to do. I pushed the button, and the girl behind the counter saw the notification. and then just smiled and processed the order. Now, I didn't really have to do this, and it might have been a little over the top, but I put the biggest smile on my face and walked over to the pickup and said, "Hey, thanks for letting me use that reward. That was very kind of you to pay it forward." The shock on their faces put a smile on mine for my walk back to work. I love this kind of revenge. It's sneaky and it lands perfectly. I'm just picturing these girls thinking they're about to score a freebie off some random stranger's order, and then watching their precious points vanish right in front of them. And the way OP walked over and said, "Thanks for letting me use that reward." That's the cherry on top. Honestly, I'd pay money to see their faces in that exact moment. Petty moves like this are pure art. Have you ever pulled off something this small but this satisfying? Tell me in the comments. I'm always here for the good ones. And that's the end of today's r/Petty Revenge Tales. Proof that you don't need to go big, just penny enough to feel amazing. If you loved the low-key vengeance, give that thumbs up button a lil love. Drop your favorite moment in the comments. I want to hear your pettiest win too. And if you're not subscribed yet, seriously, don't make me plot revenge. Click subscribe, ring that bell, and I'll see you in the next one, where karma's always caffeinated.